We've all been there. Something you didn't plan for. It's your health, your spouse, your job, something that now stands in the way. As Mike Tyson reminds us, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. Anyone can make a plan, but very few can execute when the pressure's on. Well, imagine having a way to handle things that get in the way, even turn the obstacle into an opportunity. Welcome to A Call to Rise. I'm your host, Joel Landy, founder, entrepreneur, former naval officer, and this is where we help you build resilience, which is the ability to manage high levels of challenge and disruption while maintaining high levels of effectiveness and well-being. Because goals without setbacks are uncommon and big plans without resilience are just not happening. So if your job or life demands staying and playing at a high level, you're exactly where you need to be. So let's jump in. Okay, who's here for dating advice? And then the crickets fell, right? None of you, hopefully not. Did you know, though, that YouTube started as a dating site? This is really great. This is great history, right? The original slogan was tune in and hook up. And, the founders envisioned a platform where people uploaded videos to find their ideal partner. Well, users had a completely different idea, and they ignored what the platform was prompting them to do. And instead, they started uploading videos of their pets and then their vacations, So the rest is history. And I don't think they had a difficult choice, right? Do we stick to our plan, or do we listen to what the world is asking of us and pivot? And of course, there's a great lesson here for all of us, right? And if you really thought about it right now, it would hit you. It hit you pretty hard, right? Just like YouTube, life is going to ask you to abandon something at some point in life that you feel is critical, right? This is your quest, your vision, your mission. But I want to remind you about something about success, right? It's not something that you force, right? It's about having the humility to change the direction when the world starts to show you there's something different and something better, right? And this is hard, but if you pay close attention, you're going to really be rewarded. So today, I want to share 8 difficult lessons I learned too late as an entrepreneur, and I've been successful. 2013 was my beginning year, but I want to ask you to listen and define one that really speaks to you today, because one is probably going to speak to you more than the others. But my goal is to turn my struggle into your reward, right? So let's jump in and get started here. Number one, took me way too long. Think long term, right? So I fell into the classic solopreneur trap, right? Started out by myself. I built a gilded cage, right? I became the star and the janitor at the same time, right? I had this mindset, and I know it sounds really heroic. I'm ex-military. I trained with Navy SEALs, and I thought, okay, I'm going to create a business, right? That's in fast and hard and out quick and high impact and low carbon footprint, no staff, no administration, no headaches, just really a top line profit. And the reality is I was successful, great cash flow, fantastic lifestyle. I mean, I was doing things in Southern California, not too long ago beyond my wildest dream. I was racing motorcycles. I was acting in commercials that won awards internationally. I was riding my bicycle in the Malibu Canyons. The problem, though, is I painted myself into a corner. I created what they call a dollars for hours company, meaning if I wasn't working, I didn't get paid. My company didn't get paid, right? And then COVID, of course, comes and tanked 80% of my revenue. And luckily, I pivoted and changed the company. Of course, Zoom played a role. But, when I look back, what would I have done differently? I would have asked 3 successful business owners and entrepreneurs the difference between having a high-paying job and a scalable business. And so here's the takeaway for point number 1. Don't build an income that impresses you. Build an asset that works for you and rewards you over time. And build an asset that can work without you. Okay, that's point number 1. The second point was build a team, right? Don't go solo. Okay, solo sprint, but teams scale. I had to stop being this one-man show and start being a team builder, right? Because I fell into the solopreneur trap from a lack of guidance. I never built an advisory board. I never had people around me that was asking really hard questions. No alliances were created, no cross-promotional opportunities. I was fortunate. It all happened in Santa Barbara, California for me. It blew up overnight, and I was riding the wave. But I didn't even tap into my existing network professionally, which was small but pretty robust in terms of their success in life. But I had a shift critically from this idea of being a special operator mindset, one that the military celebrated, to really building a small organization, right? And so, the takeaway that, and this is a quote I lived by, it's this African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Build a team, right? Not a real team, not one on paper. And if your business even has your pulse, it's going to be a heartbeat away from failing. So you got to build a team and not just a great service. So I want you to think about, if you're considering business, build a team, right? And I think looking back, what I would have done differently is just, you don't know what you don't know until you get in the middle of it. But I was riding a wave, and it was exciting, and I'm just here to tell you, it's better to build a team than to go solo. Okay, number 3, be clear on your why. You hear about the Simon Sinek thing, right? Who you are and who you serve, right? But when things get difficult, like something happens with in the markets, something happens in your business model, something happens internally, or you go through a crisis, you're going to need something bigger than a paycheck to get you through. And I see this especially working with people in sales. I coach a very large North American sales organization, over 400 sales consultants. And I'll tell you, if your compass for work is just a paycheck, it's going to be difficult when life and rhythms and the cycle of sales goes in the direction that you don't want it to go, right? And so developing a mission and a vision and living by values is critical, which we'll talk about in some of the upcoming podcasts. I really want you to, this is a great podcast that talks about mission, vision, values, and you can have them personally, because look, if your personal mission is just driven by personal gain, your business will stop at the first major obstacle. You need a real vision and mission for yourself in order to have a sustainable business. And what I would have done differently starting the Performance Group, which is my company, is be just more clear on how my services bring real value to clients. I just more clarity before I actually launched my position or my company. Number 4 is similar. Be clear on how, right? This is your process, your recipe. Here's where talented people get into a lot of trouble. So if you're talented, listen up, right? I want to tell you this up front. Talent is a gift, but a process is a product, right? How you deliver results is your process. I falsely believe, since I have great emotional intelligence, I thought that I can forego the diligence to actually formalize the steps and the process to bring others' results. I was successful because I was highly intuitive. I had great people skills. I'm educated. But you can rely more on your personality and your credentials, and you can become a specialist. But when you formalize your process, you become a real solution, and it's a duplicatable solution. And so the takeaway there is that talent isn't a substitute for infrastructure. And talented people get really faked out by this. They think they're going to get by their talent, and it has a shelf life, and it's really, really short, right? So perfect segue to number 5, especially if you're a talented person, listen up. You got to build systems now, right? Your systems are the machine of your company. You got to build systems. I'll talk about what they are in a second. But there's a saying in life: the 2 best times to plant a tree, 30 years ago and now. Build systems now, right? Learn what it means to have systems in your company. Freedom isn't found in a full calendar. It's found in a functional machine. And that's what systems do, right? And even if you don't have a significant client base and you don't feel like your business is that significant, start building even a crude version of the following systems, right? Productivity systems, client acquisition, marketing, CRM, others that allow the business to function like a franchise. Like think McDonald's, right? Think Starbucks, with the least human effort possible, right? Stop being a rainmaker, and you know what I mean by that, and start being an architect. It requires your hands to move. If it requires your hands to move, it's not a system, right? Your business needs to be systemized, right? And so the takeaway here is, if it requires your hands to move, it's not a system, right? And what I would have done differently is I would have sourced a company like eMyth. And if you want to read a fantastic book, eMyth, I believe it's Ron Gerber or Michael Gerber, outlines this concept perfectly. So take a look at that. Go on your AI website or your platform and make that work. Number 6, invest in your company. I confused being frugal with being cheap. This is embarrassing. I wanted a robust bottom line of profit more than I wanted a company that I can scale and sell. And that, again, that's my solopreneur trap. I was short-sighted. My mindset was scarcity. And look, I'm here to remind you something. A bank account is a place where you count your money, but a business is a place where you multiply it. And I got that wrong for too long, and I don't have that wrong now. And so, The takeaway is if you're afraid to spend on your business, you don't actually believe in it. So you got to spend money to make money, and you got to invest in your company. What I would have done differently is just change. I had a limiting belief on money, how I viewed money, how I used money, how I was raised with money. And I needed to stop treating my business like an ATM, which is just getting cash out of it all the time, and it was a lot of fun, and start treating it like a powerhouse, right? Because you can't grow what you refuse to feed. And I needed to feed my company. And you got to invest in your company. And it dovetails perfectly to number 7, which is you got to invest in yourself. I mean, if you're going to bet that the market wants, the product or service that you have and how you develop it, you better bet on the man or woman in the mirror that's going to make it happen. You got to bet on yourself. And it's just a well-known fact, right? Your business growth will never outpace your personal growth, meaning you are capped in your ability to grow a business if you lack the motivation to continue to learn and grow and risk. And I saw it this morning in one of my clients, a conversation I had one-on-one. If you're done growing, your business is done growing. It's over. It's done. So the takeaway here is if you aren't willing to invest in yourself, you've already set the ceiling for how high your company can rise, right? And so, what I would have done differently is something I did several years ago is create what is called a personal board of directors. And this is when you identify 3 or 4 people in your life, in different parts of your life, that are going to give you really good, hard-hitting advice, quarterly, annually, whatever. But they're in your corner, and they're going to say the hard things, right? The things that are meaningful for you to make better decisions about what you've created in your professional life and also in your personal life. Okay, number 8, last one. How to learn when you fail. You're going to fail, all right? If you're not comfortable with failing, then don't do the things that I just suggested, but you got to get comfortable, right? Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, right, transformed the concept of failure into a billion-dollar empire, right? Thanks to her father, who encouraged her to fail big. He used to ask her at the dinner table every night, "What did you fail at today?" And so this, combined with her experience, she used to go door-to-door selling, but it taught her to embrace rejection, leading her to create the revolutionary footless pantyhose. I know in 2000, I think it was year 2000, my daughters talk about it, my wife talks about it. It's absolutely enormous. But not failing, but learning from failing is critical, right? And that is the takeaway, right? Failure is either a dead-end road for you, or it's a stress lab that invites you to analyze the wreckage. And, if you can make sense of it to your benefit, then you've won, right? Either you win or you learn as an entrepreneur. And learning is often called failure, right? So what I would have done differently, certainly be more like Sarah Blakely on a weekly basis, but it's not too late. But really what I've done differently is I would have studied resilience at the level that I've studied it now, which is another podcast for another day. So closing thoughts. I know that's 8 ways to build a better tomorrow if you're looking to improve life and even start your own business. And I'm sure that one of them really hit hard. And I want to say this as a side note for some of you that are struggling. Obviously, you're in a difficult place for many different reasons. I don't want to be insensitive, and we all go through tough stuff. But I do want to say this, right? If you listen to the opening of this podcast, if life is challenging you today, it might be the best thing to ever happen to you. It just might be the world or God himself, if you're a faithful person, showing you a different path, a better path. The question is, can you check your ego? Do you have the ability to change direction? Because sometimes we hang on to the burning ship, and the captain goes down with his ship, and that's sometimes a recipe for a really, really difficult and a longer season than necessary in a painful place. So, hey, drop me a comment. An insight or a feisty pushback. I love the banter. I want to know what you think about this. And if you want to take another step, we're actually hosting a free webinar Friday, May 15th at 9 a.m. Look for a link below. You'll see a link somewhere. But there is a link that's going to be available for you, and that's going to be May 15th, 9 a.m. Eastern. We're going to talk about concepts like this, and it's going to be a great, great opportunity for you to learn and grow. The topic primarily will be building resilience, how to react in a turbulent world, and I think you get a lot out of that. So if we don't see you on that, we'll see you next week for episode 9. Drop us a comment. We appreciate all the interactions. Thanks for joining us. If today's conversation challenged you, it's a real signal you need to do the work. It's no longer an option for you. So don't push that feeling away. It's reminding you of the cost of playing small. Success is easy when things go well, but resilience, that's cultivated when things go sideways. Make sure you subscribe, and if this episode brought you value, pass it on. It's how we grow the tribe. We'll be back, hopefully next week. Until then, I'll see you next time. Here is your call to rise. Rise up so that others can rise.